The poorest countries in the world are those with the lowest gross domestic product (GDP) per capita. GDP is an economic indicator that measures the value of goods and services produced by a country over a given period. Thus, the poorer the country, the lower its GDP. Unfortunately, poverty remains a global challenge, with about 8% of the world's population living in extreme poverty, meaning that people are earning less than $2.15 per day. In this video, we'll delve into the realities of the 10 poorest countries in the world. We'll see the progress they've made and the challenges they face. So, hold on tight and prepare for a journey that will give you a glimpse into the lives of those who face adversity every day. Before we continue, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's begin. Number 10. Liberia. Current international dollars, 1,788. Liberia, situated on the coast of West Africa, has ranked amongst the poorest countries in the world for many years. Expectations were high when the former football star George Weah became president in 2018. His first years in office were instead marred by high inflation, unemployment, and negative economic growth. After contracting by 3% in 2020 due to the pandemic, GDP recovered to 5% in 2021 and 4.8% in 2022. Weah is up for re-election in October this year. Number 9. Chad. Current international dollars, 1,787. Chad has Africa's 10th largest oil reserves, yet poverty remains widespread, making it the 9th poorest country in the world. Most of the windfall from the nation's 2003 oil find was spent by the country's autocratic ruler, Idris Deby, on fighting rebels and cracking down on any form of dissent. When Deby was killed in 2021, a military council headed by his son, Mohamed Idris, took control of the country. The constitution was suspended shortly thereafter, both government and parliament dissolved. Idris remains interim head of state to this day. Number 8. Malawi. Current international dollars, 1,682. One of Africa's smallest nations, Malawi's economy, largely dependent upon rain-fed crops, remains vulnerable to weather-related shocks. Food insecurity in rural parts is extremely high. Malawi has enjoyed stable governments since it gained independence from Britain in 1964, but in 2020, the country's constitutional court annulled former President Peter Mutharika's win for re-election. Theologian and politician Lazarus Chakwera was sworn in his place, and today's structural changes have been slow to materialize. Annual GDP growth dipped in 2022 to 0.8%. Year-on-year inflation, in the meantime, rose to a startling 24%. Number 7. Niger. Current international dollars, 1,600. With 80% of its landlocked territory covered by the Sahara Desert and a rapidly growing population dependent upon small-scale agriculture, Niger is under threat from desertification. Food insecurity is high, as are disease and mortality rates. Recurrent clashes of the army with the Islamic State (ISIS) affiliate Boko Haram have displaced thousands. In 2021, Niger inaugurated a new president, ex-teacher and former Interior Minister Mohamed Bazoum, in its first democratic transfer of power. Now considered a bright spot on the continent, the country saw its economy expand by 11% last year, making it 7th of the world's poorest countries. It is projected to grow a more subdued but still strong 6.1% this year, and by 13% in 2024. Number 6. Mozambique. Current international dollars, 1,556. Rich in resources and strategically located, this former Portuguese colony has often posted average GDP growth rates of more than 7% in the past decade. Yet it remains mired among the 10 poorest countries in the world. Attacks by Islamic insurgent groups since 2017 have plagued the gas-rich northern part of the country. Still, according to the IMF and its sister institution, the World Bank, the medium-term economic outlook for Mozambique is positive, with growth expected to accelerate to 5% this year and 8% the next. Number 5. Democratic Republic of the Congo. Current international dollars, 1,474. Since gaining independence from Belgium in 1960, the DRC has suffered decades of rapacious dictatorship, political instability, and constant violence, making it irregular in our rankings of the world's poorest countries. Roughly three-quarters of the country's 97 million population scrapes by on less than $2 a day. Yet the World Bank says the DRC has the resources and potential to become one of the richest countries in Africa and a growth driver for the entire continent. The country is already the world's largest producer of cobalt and Africa's leading source of copper, essentials in the production of electric vehicles. Number 4. Somalia. Current international dollars, 1,374. This country of 17 million in the Horn of Africa never seems to catch a break. 2020 brought coronavirus, floods and an unprecedented infestation of locusts. Then Russia's blockade of Ukraine's wheat exports helped fill Somali health facilities with severely malnourished children. Today, Islamist insurgents are trying to overthrow the central government concurrent with the worst drought in 4 decades. With humanitarian agencies warning that about half of the population is in desperate need of assistance, Somalia is again near the top, or bottom, of our world's poorest countries ranking. Number 3. Central African Republic. Current international dollars, 1,127. Rich in gold, oil, uranium and diamonds, the Central African Republic is a very wealthy country inhabited by very poor people and has been among the poorest countries in the world for the better part of a decade. The sharp increase in essential good prices that followed the war in Ukraine, simultaneously with cycles of severe flooding and dry spells, has only brought more pain. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimates that approximately 2.7 million people, almost half of CR's population, are experiencing acute food insecurity. Number 2. Burundi. Current international dollars, 891. Tiny landlocked Burundi lacks natural resources and has been scarred by a 12-year civil war, contributing to its ranking of second poorest country in the world. With about 80% of Burundi's roughly 13 million citizens relying on subsistence agriculture, food insecurity is almost twice as high as the average for sub-Saharan African countries. Furthermore, access to water and sanitation remains very low and less than 5% of the population has electricity. President Evariste Ndayishimiye has made an effort to relaunch the economy and repair diplomatic relationships, and last year, both the US and the European Union resumed aid after lifting financial sanctions. Unfortunately, growth remains sluggish, and inflation is projected this year to be around 16%. Number 1. South Sudan. Current international dollars, 516. The very poorest of the world's poorest countries, South Sudan has been racked by violence since its creation in 2011. Rich in oil reserves, the landlocked state of roughly 11 million represents a textbook example of the resource curse, whereby abundance fosters political and social divisions, inequality, corruption, and warfare. The majority of the population is employed in traditional agriculture, although violence and extreme climate events often prevent farmers from planting or harvesting crops. While the projected economic growth for 2023 could hold strong at 5.8%, but inflation is stronger, among the world's highest at 27%. UNICEF estimates that well over half of the population, some 7.8 million people, are likely to face acute food insecurity during the April-July 2023 lean season. And there you have it. The list of the top 10 poorest countries in the world highlights the challenges faced by these nations in terms of economic development, poverty alleviation, and improving living standards for their populations. If you enjoy this video, then don't forget to hit the like button, also subscribe and turn on your notification bell for watch many more interesting videos. Thanks for watching.